I'm Amber Bock, and I'm here with you today for our Superintendent Spotlight. The purpose of this show is a chance to let you kind of learn about the aspects of Westboro that might be new to you or unknown. And today we have one of my favorite topics. We're talking about the numerous expansive ways that we work to provide support to every learner in Westboro. So I have some amazing people here with me today. We will dive right in. So I'm here with Director of Student Services, Sherrie Stevens. She oversees the whole department across the district that provide a whole array of student services to our amazing 4,000 students across the district. We're going to learn a little bit about some of the students that she focuses on. So Sherrie and I have had the pleasure of working together a very long time, 10 years, and I would never have anybody else in this seat other than her. So good at the work and so focused on the importance of supporting students with special learning needs. And we have Aliza De Vincent here with us, and she is a student service coordinator over at Mill Pond. And she has another partner over there,
Gina Delon.
And the two of them, because Mill Pond's big, and so the two of them work up closely with families to provide student services support. And we have Karen over here, Bunton, and you are a student service coordinator. You pick up a wide umbrella as well.
I do.
Can you talk a little bit about what you do? Because your job description kind of gets big and small all the time, it seems like.
Yep, student services coordinator for our 1822 program, the borough.
A favorite of all of ours.
I know. As well as our out-of-district students, so students that we have placed in DESE-approved schools to receive their education. And I have a few other roles here in district that are not special education related.
No, but part of student services umbrella,
under
which
student
is
services.
Like, under student services, you help with our homeless families, all
I'm
sorts
also
of amazing
service
things.
the homeless liaison.
Karen's like the person we go to when we have something we don't know who to give it to. So it's like, that works super well for us. We're like, hey, what about Karen? So it's kind of perfect. But you know, we have an array of amazing services in town that we're immensely proud of, and our goal is always that any child who lives in Westboro should be able to school here successfully across the years of their education. And so today we're going to be looking at the special new IEP implementation. So, Sherrie, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, you know, how many, we have 4,000 students in Westboro roughly. We're just like 10 under that, like Laura's, but talk about the array of students that you provide service for on special education.
Yeah, so thank you. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. And we do like almost 4,000 now, so we're growing like all of the time, as you so well know. And we have 650 students currently on individualized education plans, receiving a wide range of services, everything from speech-only services to kind of like full IEPs for students that have more complex learning needs, but we always stay sort of in the focus of least restrictive environment, how we give students, all students, access to really a high level of education at their most independent level. So we're really excited to be here and talk more about the process today. I'm not sure, Aliza and Karen, if you want to add anything in terms of the students that we serve.
Yeah, I think that was a good descriptor. I mean, we really are seeing students with a wide variety of educational needs, and the IEP is the very mechanism to lay out what those needs are and how that can support them to access their education.
I love it. I actually, one of my two children got speech when they were little, and so very early on when we lived in Westboro, I didn't know at that time, all those years ago, that you know, now in their 20s, that I would be here and superintendent, but we got great care, and it was my first experience with the IEP structure. And so those 650 students are the ones we're kind of talking about today, the families that we serve within that model who require an IEP, because the topic today is the new IEP implementation, because the state has moved in the direction. So our goal today is that we should be able to push this communication out on Westboro TV so all families can learn about the services and things that go on in Westboro, but at the same time today kind of a special focus for our families on IEPs, and we'll share this to them specifically so they get this kind of upfront look at the work we're doing. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it from here.
Yes, so we're excited again to be here and to really think and talk about and educate parents about where we are. And I just want to give a shout out to the team, the student service coordinators across the district running pre-K through 12 plus. There are 9 of them. and they're amazing.
They are an
and
amazing
I could not
team.
do my job without them on a daily basis. So we like to get together. We've tried to have some fun through this process, and we all like change, right? And change we need to understand is at the heart and the core of what we do. It pushes us out of our comfort zone, but we've really been on the ground since August, planning this new implementation phase. So again, shout out to the student services coordinators, to also the office team at Forbes, to Lisa and Stacy.
I love the shirts. I kind of peeked in on that meeting, and this was your launch with your team to really start to think about how you share this to other faculty and to families. And I guess the purpose of this show and something that we can provide that's different is kind of getting behind the scenes a little bit for our families to see the process that we use. And so, from the summer, we've been working through this. We have all year ahead of us that we've been working towards the start of using this IEP. What is the official launch date for it?
It's fall. It's with the opening of school, 2024.
So there's time for everybody to learn. And you have to remember our team will be learning as well. So I think everyone we're asking for that patience and support and this opening of knowledge. So can you talk a little bit about DESE? So DESE is the state organizational framework for education, all education across Massachusetts. And so they put out some information on their rationale for having this change.
Yeah, so the most important thing I think to know at this point is that, the IEP form hasn't been updated in 20 years, right? So here we go, right?
Yeah.
And while it can seem kind of daunting, it's also a very exciting time for Westboro and for other districts to really think about what we're putting into the form to kind of recalibrate where we are as a district and really have consistency across the board about approach to team meetings, about the substance that's going into the IEPs. So, I think that's important work. I think DESE's looking to really always, it's a continuous process to really increase educational outcomes and experiences for students with disabilities, and really reflect on what the requirement is, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, is really around least restrictive environments, so that they can really experience like whole child opportunity when they're in the school and navigating their communities and their cultures.
I love that. I mean, I think the thing we always have talked about is that, and I remember this with my own child, which is a child is a full encompassed human being, and the targeted area of their special support needs isn't what defines them. It's a piece of them. And I think that's a struggle, because I think when you come to these meetings, often it feels like we're just so honed in on those aspects. And Aliza, maybe you could talk a little bit about that. I mean, you're really bringing your team to this, and you're going to be right up front with parents. And the goal is to help them look at that whole child. You have team meetings and they come in. So can you tell me how you're going to be working with them when this starts a little bit? Will be new for them. Are we previewing it differently with them before so they can unpack the new model? It's going to be different.
Yeah, and one of the key focuses for DESE in this reauthorization of the form is to really raise the student and the parent voice. And part of the way that we're going to be focusing on doing that is communicating ahead of the meeting more as much as possible in ways that work best with families to gather some information ahead of the meetings. Parents will be familiar with the idea of sort of the parent concern section, which they already currently have, but we'll be looking to get some of that information a little bit ahead of the meeting. That might look like a Google form or a phone call. We're still working on sort of the specifics
The how,
there. The how. And then also to really raise the student voice. So that was a kind of perfect segue into one of their main areas of focus, which is to, throughout the IEP, be really considering student strengths, interests, and learning preferences when we're looking at the different ways that their disability impacts them, so that we're really honing in on how can we use those things in a number of settings to help improve their outcomes, help them feel better about their education, and move them forward in their specific goals.
That's so well targeted, and actually for families across district, that really echoes what we've been working on across all learners with our UDL focus, that universal design, the idea that we have to do our best to understand as faculty where children come into entry areas for learning. Some are entering at the highest end where they have mastery of a skill, even when we're opening it up, and we need to stretch those learners. And we have other learners that need to come in the middle or at the beginning, or need something scaffolded before they start. And so getting that student voice in there, that feels like very parallel to kind of that whole focus. And we've been working on the UDL for 2 years, so it's kind of nice to see that this new IEP, measures against it. So do you have something else to add around rationale?
Yeah, I do actually, because I think one of the things that has really stood out to me that I really like is often an IEP meeting can really be sitting there, and we've come together to talk about the things that maybe a student is challenged with, right? The things that are hard for them in terms of accessing their education. And sometimes the nature of that conversation doesn't allow for the things that they're really doing well and are going well. The new forms really require that we speak to both pretty fluidly, and that's a really nice shift from the old forms.
Yeah.
So just as much as we may be talking about those things that need to be improved upon or that the student may need support around, there is lots of space in the new IEP form that talks about what they already have as strengths and what they are already doing well, and how can that be built upon to help address maybe the things that are hard for them.
I love that focus because, and I think we talk about this in that a disability, when you look at something where a child comes forward with a disability, you don't fix that. You structure a student's knowledge about how to use strategies to work around it. You scaffold it, and you kind of like a muscle, you work that skill with specialized instruction. And so you take the areas of weakness and you're thinking about it like a workout, like what are the specialized instruction pieces that they need specifically to target that disability area, but that they have these strengths we want to play off of to move them forward at the rate that they really want to move while they're working that muscle. And I think that feels like a great context to just kind of see the improvements to the IEP. Any last words on that before we move forward?
No, I think the only other piece, and I think Karen will touch on this a little bit later, is just around looking at DESE's intent to really strengthen transition planning, which I think as a district we've really done a good job and focused on quite a bit. But we're really excited to see whether it's employment or post-secondary, et cetera, like that is a core focus of the rationale for this change.
I love it. Academic, social, emotional, communication, and other areas of need, really whole child focus. And that runs parallel with how districts work in general for all learners, which feels like a more cohesive, a cohesive approach. Great.
And Amber, you actually already kind of led us to the introduction here, which really is around raising that student voice. There has already been, as a part of the IEP, the student strengths and interests, but this new form really lends itself to really meaningfully discussing student interests, strengths, and how they prefer to learn when you're looking at each of the areas and their present levels in academic, social, emotional, behavioral, communication, or other areas that their disability impacts them. So we're really thinking about how to make meaning of those strengths and interests and the way that they prefer to learn to capitalize on that as we're moving them forward in their education.
Great. So we've been talking about some of the areas of focus. Can we talk a little bit about that before we hop into the next slide?
Lisa touched on some of this earlier. However, in raising the student voice and also talking about transition planning, most of our families that have students that are age 14 and older are quite familiar with transition planning and the range of questions that often are asked in the course of transition planning, especially around students' vision for themselves and what they see as their strengths and what they see as their challenges and what they want to work on in the next year and what do they want to work on in the larger picture towards their future. With these new forms, the raising the student's voice is also bringing that back to even our youngest of students and really helping them engage in that thought process as young as preschool, if someone has a preschooler.
What are you good at?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of work we're doing internally to be really calibrating our practices and really developing strong practices for those younger students. We've been doing this for a long time for our 14 plus crowd,
right,
and are quite well versed at it, but this will be definitely new for us with the younger students, and really how do we solicit that information from them and how do we really help them feel that they are a part of this process.
And you're figuring that out as a team right now, some of that. And I think one of the things we start to learn is you'll start generating ideas of the best, most organic, authentic ways to talk to young learners about what they're good at, which feels really fun. And it really looks also at parent engagement. Are there new things on the front in the parent engagement? You talked about wanting to work with them ahead of time. It can be overwhelming to be looking at testing data. you're trying to break some of that down before the start of the meeting, so the meeting lets you cover what you want. Ready to move forward?
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can get the slides right. That's it. There we go. So talk a little bit about the timeline here and where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the work has been front-loaded. Certainly, the team has started with developing an IEP writing guide, which Desi had as a model, but really specific to Westboro to kind of align and calibrate our approach to the new form pre-K through 12 plus. We're in the staff training phase right now. We've put out an FAQ for staff. And we'll continue with Q&A sessions monthly. We meet, typically the student services coordinators meet with their departments monthly, and they're kind of like taking each section of the IEP and working it through. And some are more eager, just like, let me, like, give me a case study and let me work through the form. So I think, it can be anxiety provoking, but I think there's really good energy around this. So this is where we are with the work. We will continue to share communication updates, emails. It's on the webpage, kind of just ad nauseum. Here's where we are with IEP. Like, that is our mantra this year, and we're excited to move forward. We're still working with our software company who's rolling out sort of their new version of this. And just tracking things along, but we feel like we're very much on plan, on point with how we're moving forward.
I think, Aliza, like the whole team is diverse too in terms of their learning styles. So some of them, this is like the same thing we'll be doing with families, and we say like we want it to be fun. We don't usually offer the word fun around stressful, what can be complicated meetings, but there should be a sense of fun in this and a sense of collaboration when you come together with families. So all the student service coordinators are all different in how they learn. So I'm sure it's been pretty fun to be at those meetings.
It helps us practice. Really, we're like UDLing this process.
Exactly.
So we each have to remind ourselves, like, I don't work with paper, but someone certainly does.
Right.
So anyway, I think like it's good for us to be in practice with that as well. So we're very excited as we move forward.
And it's been exciting work to calibrate a practice, right? I mean, we've been strong in our IEP development, we've been strong in our process, but this was really an interesting opportunity to just take it to that next level, right? And really ensure that we are, for our students and our families, that the experience their student and they may have with an IEP has consistency through the years as they're moving through the buildings and as they're moving through, the process of the IEP.
That's certainly something parents want from us. I think they often, and especially at the transition times, like 3rd to 4th, there's a lot of discussion around the smooth transition from 3rd to 4th grade. We want our families to know, like, we hear that and we're working on it. Again, transition from high school into the 18 to 22-year-old program, lots of questions. And I think when you look at even preschool to K, right, at that early childhood. So we want our families to know that we're looking at all that and trying to get a continuity of the service delivery, which feels like a really good place to be. And I think messaging to families is that we do understand, like, looking at complex testing data can be overwhelming. And I know that those phone calls ahead of time to say, let's look at the pieces of the testing and let me talk without the lingo about what this test shows to give you a sense of like breaking it down. And now you guys are all kind of working on the fun ways to show that even to your own team and to share with parents. And just like you're saying, maybe we need to do like a short video clip of a successful meeting and what it looks like so that the staff can see it, but also families and parents to see like, this is how we want it to feel when you come in. So good fun ahead. I think when families are concerned about what it'll be like at the table when they're going through meetings, our message is always call your coordinator, ask for support, and your classroom teacher's right there also as the center of the student experience. So. All right, other highlights. Anything else you want to hit on?
I just want to say for families too that our rollout for families and for students is at that point in time where your student will have the annual review meeting or reevaluation meeting. So it's not like in September, like we're going, full out with the IEP. It'll be strategic. It'll be systematic. You'll experience it as the next meeting comes up naturally for your child, while we continue to do work behind the scenes and gather your feedback like all next year in terms of where we are with this process. So thank you for the opportunity to be
I think
here.
as much too as families can familiarize themselves with the forms and the pages, I think that will just lend, so when they are coming to the table for their child's IEP meeting, regardless of when it is in the year, that they've seen the forms, they've seen the pages, they understand what's being asked for in terms of information in each of those sections, because there are just enough differences that I think that would really I think, be helpful if,
Well,
in the team meeting process.
Exactly,
To be familiar.
and you have stuff on the website, and there's a
there's-
thank you there to
Yep.
go there. But I also think if the video model is working for you, let us know, because we can put out short clips on the sections, because you enjoy this, it's easy. We can come together and do vignettes on the sections or things like that. Like, this is a organic idea phase where this is the team thinking about how do we bring this to families and to our own team in a way that everybody sees. This is a team, it is a model. We are all centered on the same purpose, which is we want your children to thrive. And we have such an amazing staff that are working hard to do that. And so I just think it's good for families. If you have a child that has a strand of their learning where they need extra support, you've got a lot of good people there waiting to work with you and to make your child thrive. So
Another main point that they wanted to focus on was making the document more accessible to families, and I think that they've been successful with that. That's the feedback we've been getting as well
That's
as we've
good.
been working through. So I'm hopeful that will be the feedback. I think it lends itself to making more sense of why information is in the document, and making sure that we're using that information to meaningfully think about how to support the students and making connections
I love that.
within the document. So I hope that through those meetings, the whole team will feel like we're really, in more family-friendly language, talking about
the kind of like what to
student
expect
success,
when you come
student-
to the meeting
Yeah.
is like it's important to like forge those connections as you're sitting at the table so that people can relax and come to the table knowing that it's a shared planning session, to really look at your child and get ready to help them in the classroom. So thank you so much. So that's it for today. We're keeping this one tight so that we can push it out to our families that will be looking at it specifically to learn a little bit around the new IEP model. And again, Superintendent Spotlight welcoming you to learn more about kind of the behind the scenes of the Westboro Public Schools and how the teams work to get ready to bring things to you. So thank you for joining us today. Again, if you have any questions, you can just look on the website. You can contact your student service coordinator, your classroom teacher. We are here to serve you, and we're really pleased that we have an opportunity to be your support in Westboro. Take care.